Well, good afternoon, everyone. 48 First Alert meteorologist Chelsea Aaron here to bring you today's weather extra. We are going to be tracking the potential for strong to severe storms later on this evening. It's looking more like an overnight and early Monday morning threat at this point, but we are not going to be tracking any severe weather, at least as we head throughout the rest of this afternoon and evening. Now, we are tracking some scattered showers, maybe even a few isolated thunderstorms will be possible as we head later on today. But again, this activity neither going to be strong nor severe. I can't rule out some heavier downpours or possibly even occasional lightning, brief gusty winds, but the main event that's going to be arriving initially across northwest Alabama after midnight. And I'm going to pull up the latest timeline that I have for y'all, and also the primary threats, because I have been getting blown up all day long and I want to keep the messaging consistent and maybe put your mind at ease a bit, because when it comes to weather, I know there's a lot of information out there on the internet, on social media, you name it, and the more you look at that information and the more that you overconsume, it basically can become very, very confusing. So I want to make this as simple as I can for you guys, so you know what to expect as we head throughout the next 24 hours and into your next work and school week, because we do have another threat coming up likely by the middle of the week. This is going to be late Wednesday and into Thursday, but just looking over some of the latest data, that is going to be a conditional threat, but that's not the only risk we have coming up in the near future. Severe weather could linger through the end of the week and potentially even into next weekend. So this is going to be a very busy week in the weather department. Bear with us because we have a lot of data to look over and a lot of timelines to make for you in the near future. So scattered shower storms, those will continue to track to the north and east as we head throughout the rest of the afternoon and evening. The severe threat is ongoing well to our north at this hour. Areas like Illinois, even back into the Ohio Valley. Under tornado watches, you see that very distinct line of showers and storms pushing along I-80 there, even into Michigan. Basically, what we're going to be tracking is further development down the line well to our west and portions of Arkansas, and this is going to be what we call a QLCS. Basically, that's a quasi-linear convective system. So in layman's terms, it's going to be a broken line of storms. These are going to move west to east quite quickly overnight, likely approaching, like I mentioned, far northwest Alabama just after midnight, and this is going to continue well into the early morning commute. So keep this in mind. You want to have the latest and most updated information before you are hitting the road, before you head out the door, because we'll likely see this threat linger potentially for areas to the east through 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, the tornado threat is going to be highest along and west of I-65, but altogether the tornado risk is extremely low. No two things can exist at once. Even though tornadoes will be possible, tornadoes are not going to be common or widespread. We just have to make you aware of these things, because if a tornado were to happen and we didn't say that a tornado could happen, right, we're not doing our due diligence as meteorologists. But I know immediately your mind gets sent into a frenzy when you hear the word tornado. No, this is not going to be a significant tornado outbreak, and the worst of the weather likely is going to be displaced to our north and west. Western Tennessee could potentially see strong tornadoes. We're talking EF2 or higher, but we're not expecting that risk to linger far south into northwestern Alabama. Now, of course, things could change. We're going to be providing updates 24/7 as we head throughout the next several hours, but this is why it's important to pay close attention to updates. Some people asking me today as well, hey, it's still pretty cloudy where I am. Is that going to help at all? Well, this is one thing that we do have going for us at the moment. We are going to be tracking potentially a lot of instability later on tonight, but cloud cover definitely limiting that instability as of right now. In fact, it's kept us cooler. Temperatures originally were scheduled to reach the middle and upper 70s. Most locations have only stayed in the upper 60s and lower 70s. The caveat to that is, though, the low-level jet kicking in as we head overnight and early on Monday. And this is still something that likely will not completely eliminate the severe weather threat altogether. And basically what the low-level jet is it is very, very high winds well above the surface. We're talking thousands of feet in the air. However, enough heavy rainfall could bring those down quite easily, so keep this in mind. Even though signals are good as of right now, they may not completely hold as we head later on tonight. And dew points, they're well into the 60s and lower 70s. This is the moisture that will likely be fueling some of these stronger storms. Some things we're going to watch for later on tonight include bowing segments within the line and also notches that develop. Some other people asking me, are we going to see supercells potentially ahead of the main line? There is the potential for not only discrete, but what we call semi-discrete supercells. And basically, semi-discrete supercells, they don't stand alone like your typical supercells does, but it still acts in the same nature that a supercellular storm would, embedded within the actual line. So these could definitely still produce tornadoes. We are expecting mainly the brief spin-up kind as we head later on tonight, but we're going to be monitoring for any potential surprises as well. Note winds very breezy again today out of the south. This is helping those dew points rise, and again, that moisture is what will help potentially intensify these storms as we head later on tonight. Now, this is our graph model, our in-house model that we use. It is trending earlier than some of the other models, and I will say I'm not too sold completely on this earlier arrival time, and so I'm going to show you another model in just a few seconds and some of those severe parameters that we look for in terms of favorable ingredients for not only damaging winds, hail, but also tornadoes. And I want to make something clear. Our primary risk as we head later on tonight and through the early morning hours on Monday, it is going to be mainly damaging wind gusts and large hail. Note, isolated tornadoes still possible, but it's on the low end in terms of what's going to be most impactful area-wide. I would expect power outages, and I would also expect downed trees. We do think this line will weaken as it gradually tracks to the east. Some people also confused about that. Highest threat is going to be west of I-65. So yes, areas to the west, you have the higher tornado threat, but it's not until it starts to move east of I-65 that we will see it weaken. And there's not going to be this big invisible boundary where the storms will go from 0 or 100, should I say, to 0. Note, that's just not how it works. But a gradual weakening trend in terms of intensity is what we plan for as we head later on tonight, just because the instability values are going to be lower to the east. Some people asking about Sand Mountain magic. We are not expecting that this evening. The wind shear quite limited overall with this system. Instability is really the big thing that we have kind of, I wouldn't say going for us because we never hope for severe weather, but instability, those are our higher values as we head later on tonight. So hour by hour, this model has the main line forming and arriving in northwest Alabama just before midnight. And it will quickly track to the east. This is going to be tracking mainly in a southeasterly fashion. So areas right along the Tennessee-Alabama state border there, you're going to be tracking some of the worst of the weather, or we'll be tracking some of the worst of the weather initially for you as well. So areas back through Florence, likely the most intense storms will be hitting you initially, but it should clear anywhere from 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and then it'll shift toward the I-65 corridor, and then areas down the line in northeast Alabama, likely right after 4 o'clock through the 5 to 6 o'clock window. And we're going to be drying out quite quickly with much cooler air rushing in for your Monday. Here's that main storm timeline, and I'm about to show you another model that we use. This is what we call the HRRR, or the HRRR. That basically stands for High Resolution Rapid Refresh Model. I agree more with this model in terms of timing, and it usually has a good handle on these types of systems. So areas in red, you're going to be anywhere from 1 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock. And these are very large time frames, but note, far northwest Alabama, that threat will be winding down anywhere from 2 to 3 in the morning. It's just this is going to be moving so quickly, so we just broke it up into 2 main timeline windows instead of 3. Areas in yellow likely 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the morning. And then conditions will quickly improve throughout the day. So this is using the HRRR model. And CAPE values, this is the storm energy, or the convective available potential energy, the instability we call it. They're going to be very high, area-wide, likely ranging 1,500, 2,000 joules per kilogram, especially in northwest Alabama. As we head later on tonight, though, I want you to see what happens. They kind of back off a bit, which is not uncommon since this is going to be an overnight threat. But they're still going to be high enough for storms to reach severe criteria. And again, this is showing kind of that later arrival, which my current thinking is more in line with. Northwest Alabama, this line will be approaching just after midnight, right around 1 o'clock in the morning. And all modes of severe weather will be possible. We'll be watching for supercellular storms embedded and also ahead of the line. And then also damaging wind gusts, which could exceed 60 to 65 miles per hour. This will race quickly to the east, approaching I-65, either just before or right after 4 o'clock in the morning. But notice how those instability values just drop off very, very quickly, going from the 1,000 range all the way well below 500. This isn't to say that you're not going to see severe weather east of I-65, but again, these storms will be weakening in intensity as they continue to track east. And everyone's going to be seeing heavy rainfall, and these are going to be very intense lightning producers as well. And you know, lightning can also cause your power to go out, so keep this in mind. And this is the Energy Helicity Index. This combines not only the CAPE, or the instability, but also the wind shear limited. And you notice those values quite high, but that's before the storms even arrive. When the storms arrive, values still over 1, that could support tornado potential, especially once the line initially reaches northwest Alabama. But they drop off quite quickly. And again, we're expecting this severe weather threat to wind down, if not end completely, right around 6 o'clock in the morning. So closely watching the potential for flooding, since this is going to be very, very fast moving. Again, that potential quite low. Note, if you do live in a flood-prone area, a low-lying area, there could be standing or ponding water. Please never drive through flooded roadways. And again, make sure you check the forecast, look at the latest information that your 48 First Alert weather team will be providing. We are going to be streaming later on this evening as well before you hit the roads for your early morning commute. That's the best advice I can give you at this point. For now, it is just a wait and see until the storms arrive again overnight, early on Monday. Cooler, drier air rushes in behind all of the storms. High temperatures staying in the 60s. Tuesday going to be a very nice day, sunshine. Temperatures warmer, likely lower middle 70s. I'm probably going to bump those temperatures up, but that next severe risk will occur mainly late Wednesday evening and early Thursday. And this is a conditional threat because the highest risk for severe weather by the middle of the week is going to be well to our north. But we're basically watching if a boundary can sink far south into our area. That's what we're going to have to look for. Nothing's really clear cut at this moment. It's going to be a hit or miss complex of storms. Could or may not happen at all. We have not issued any more first alert weather days down the line, but we'll be providing more details, especially once we get through this threat later on tonight. And I would expect more storms throughout the rest of the week into next weekend, and a severe threat could be lingering again by next weekend as well. Of course, thank you so much for tuning in today on this edition of Weather Extra. We'll provide more updates, and we'll also give you more information if we're likely going to see a watch tonight, which, if I had to guess, it would be a tornado watch. Please stay tuned, pay very close to weather updates, and make sure you have more than one way to receive weather alerts as we head overnight. And you also have some sort of device to wake you up in the middle of the night if need be. For now, just make sure you have a safety plan in place, know where you would go in case of a tornado or a severe storm. We're going to be on at 5 and 10 o'clock this evening, and again, we will be likely streaming, doing a Facebook Live on YouTube, Roku, you name it, we'll be there once storms get closer to our area overnight. Thanks again.